how to crack prelims 2020. The purpose of this class is to orient you towards prelims exam 2020 and what is the cutoff mark in the earlier exams and what cutoff mark generally save for us, how many marks we have to achieve or get in prelims to pass through prelims, and what is the object of preliminary exam, and for this year particularly how to study. First of all, what is the prelims exam and how the prelims exam is actually scheduled and how to gain more marks than the cutoff marks and how the cutoff is decided. The cutoff marks in prelims exam, they are decided based on the competition, based on the availability of posts. Generally, around 8 lakh people will apply to prelims exam. 4 to 5 lakhs will sit in the exam, and based on your posts, around for every post, 12 to 13 people will be selected for mains exam. That is 1:12 or 1:13. They will write for the mains exam. They will go for the mains exam, and 1:2.5 around will be called for interview. So, for example, if you have 1,000 posts, around 12,000 people are selected for mains. This is generally average. I am telling it's approximate data. Coming to prelims cutoff, remember, based on your category, there will be a cutoff. Cutoff is not common to all. It is based on your category. And on an average, from last 5 years, the general category candidates getting 102, 103, they are in the safe side. Except 1 year, 4 years back, 1 year the cutoff went to 108. So on an average, you are expected to be on safe side if you are a general category candidate, around 110 marks to be on safe side, 110 to 115. And cutoff differs from year to year based on the toughness of the paper. If the paper is easy, the maximum marks which you are going to get will increase. If the paper is tough, if the paper is very tough, definitely cutoffs will decrease. So cutoff, if the paper is tough for you, it is tough for all. If the paper is easy for you, it is easy for all. Remember. So cutoff depends on the toughness of paper. For example, if the paper is very easy, cutoff may go for 110. If the paper is very tough, cutoff may even end up in 98, 99 based on the toughness. And based on, you might get a question, a doubt, how many questions I have to attempt? Because there is a negative marking. Because there is a negative marking of 1/3, 1/3, you may get a doubt, how many questions I have to attempt? Here, I cannot tell based on just as an assumption. You have to sit in the exam hall and spontaneously you need to assume the toughness of the paper. Based on the toughness of the paper, you should increase your answers. You should increase your questions. Okay. So coming to trends of the exam. Coming to trends of prelims exam. Before 2014, the static portion syllabus, generally they used to give 70% of the questions from static. Before 2014, 70% of the questions are from static, 30% are from dynamic. From 2014 onwards, we are observing a trend, 50-50. 50% of the questions from static, 50% of the questions from dynamic. You may get a doubt, what is this dynamic question? Say for example, now I'll give an example. They may ask you a question about, say, anti-defection law. Anti-defection law. They may ask you, which of the following amendments or analysis part of anti-defection law? So you may think that it is a static question in polity, but it is not a static question in polity. It was actually based on many defections that were happening in the recent past. So everyday newspaper we are seeing Ayaram, Gayaram politics. In that perspective, examiner might think to give a question on anti-defection law. Okay, so it looks like very static, but there was a current news regarding that. So we have seen a current news regarding that. In the same way, I'll explain one more thing. Andhra Pradesh, the Andhra Pradesh government wanted to do away with legislative council. Legislative council. They might give a question about the process of creation and abolition of legislative council. They might ask a question about the process of creation or abolition of a legislative council. And for group 2 level, there might give basic question, which article deals with abolition or creation. Sometimes UPSC also might give such questions. Article 169. Article 169 of the Indian Constitution deals with abolition or creation of a legislative council. Or if the civil services exam, if they want to complicate the thing, they will ask us the process. They will ask us the process. శాసన మండలి ఏ విధంగా క్రియేట్ చేస్తారు, ఏ విధంగా అబాలిష్ చేస్తారు, దాని మీద ప్రాసెస్ అడగొచ్చు. ఓకే, సో ఇట్ ఈస్ అ స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్, బట్ దెర్ ఇస్ dynamism in that. In the same way, there's one more static question in polity. There's one more static question in polity, that is money bill. Money bill. You have seen in the recent past, many bills, though they are not typical money bills, they are being introduced as money bills in Lok Sabha. Money bills కాకపోయినా సరే money bills అని పెడుతున్నారు. They may ask you about the process of money bill. Money bill process అడగొచ్చు. Or they may ask you about controversial role of governor. Article 163, discretionary powers of governor గురించి అడగొచ్చు. They may ask different questions. In the same way, you have seen so many writs are being filed with respect to migrant laborers. Migrant workers సంబంధించి చాలా రిట్ పిటిషన్స్ పడుతున్నాయి సుప్రీం కోర్టులో, హైకోర్టులో. They may give a question on what is the difference between writ jurisdiction of the Supreme Court and writ jurisdiction of the High Court. Or they may give a question, is the writ jurisdiction of the High Court is wider than the writ jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. High Court యొక్క writ jurisdiction Supreme Court యొక్క writ jurisdiction కన్నా విస్తృతమైందా? Yes, it is wider. You know why? You can go and file a writ petition in High Court not only when your fundamental right is violated, but also when your legal right is violated. నీ ఫండమెంటల్ రైటే కాదు, లీగల్ రైట్ వాలేట్ అయినా సరే నువ్వు హైకోర్టులో రిట్ పిటిషన్ వేయచ్చు, కానీ సుప్రీం కోర్టులో ఓన్లీ వెన్ యువర్ ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్ ఇస్ వయలేటెడ్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, రైట్ టు ప్రాపర్టీ is a legal right but not a fundamental right. So when your right to property is violated, you can file a writ in the High Court but not in the Supreme Court. సుప్రీం కోర్టులో నువ్వు రిట్ ఫైల్ చేయాలంటే ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ వాలేట్ అయి ఉండాలి. హైకోర్టులో ఫండమెంటల్ రైట్స్ వాలేట్ అయినా రిట్ ఫైల్ చేయొచ్చు, లీగల్ రైట్స్ వాలేట్ అయినా రిట్ ఫైల్ చేయొచ్చు. What does it mean? It means the writ jurisdiction of the High Court is wider than the writ jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So such type of questions, ఎందుకంటే from last 2-3 months, so many writs are being filed in various high courts and Supreme Court. చాలా హై కోర్ట్స్ సుప్రీం కోర్టులో ముఖ్యంగా మైగ్రెంట్ లేబర్ విషయంలో చాలా రిట్స్ ఫైల్ అవుతున్నాయి. ఎంజీ నరేగా రైట్ టు వర్క్ is a legal right, which is not a fundamental right. Right to work under MG Narega is a legal right but not a fundamental right. So ila anamata. So there is a tendency. Apart from this tendency in polity, you can expect static questions also. ఈ టెండెన్సీ తో పాటు పాలిటీలో మనం స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్స్ కూడా ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేయొచ్చు. సో పాలిటీలో స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఏంటి, ఏ విధంగా క్వశ్చన్స్ వస్తాయి అనుకుంటున్నారా? వాట్ ఈస్ ద స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఇన్ పాలిటీ, హౌ దే విల్ కమ్ అనేటప్పుడు రెగ్యులర్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఏంటి చెప్పిన డైరెక్టివ్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ లో ఆర్టికల్ 44 to 51 మధ్య రెగ్యులర్ గా పాత రోజుల్లో స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్స్. ఆర్టికల్ 44 to 51 డైరెక్టివ్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్, ఆర్టికల్ 44 to 51 పాత రోజుల్లో రెగ్యులర్ స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్స్ వచ్చాయి అనమాట. ఇన్ ద సేమ్ వే ద రెగ్యులర్ స్టాటిక్ క్వశ్చన్ మనం చూస్తే పాలిటీలో పార్లమెంటరీ కమిటీస్ లో ముఖ్యంగా 3 కమిటీస్: పబ్లిక్ అకౌంట్స్ కమిటీ, ఎస్టిమేట్స్ కమిటీ, and committee on public undertakings. And recent parliamentary committees lo kuda there are 24 departmental standing committees gurinchi kuda. This particular year, parliamentary committees are also important for mains, not only for prelims. Parliamentary committees are also important for mains anamata. In the same way, this particular year 2019-2020 lo one more important topic is cabinet committees. Polity lo stock question cabinet committees. There are total 8 cabinet committees. 2 cabinet committees are newly formed. There are total 8 cabinet committees. 2 cabinet committees are newly formed. One is Cabinet Committee on Employment and Skill Development. One is Cabinet Committee on Employment and Skill Development. And second is Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth. Cabinet Committee on Employment and Skill Development. Second is Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth. Cabinet Committee on Investment and Growth. Okay. Now, for all of you, as a polity teacher, as a political science teacher, I wish to advise you one thing. I wish to advise you one thing for polity. I have observed a trend in polity questions from 2013. Basically, as a civil services aspirant, we will study one basic book for polity and go to the exam. ఏదైనా ఒక బుక్ చదివేసి ఎగ్జామ్కి వెళ్ళిపోతాం. బట్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఇఫ్ యూ అబ్జర్వ్, దే ఆర్ గివింగ్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఆన్ పొలిటికల్ థియరీ rather than polity. Nowadays, apart from polity, amendment of the constitution, parliamentary terms, ivanni dinto paatu the analysis part of polity they are asking. So better to read 11th class NCERT political theory to get conceptual clarity even for non-political science students. So why I'm telling this? Because I have observed questions like, what do you mean by liberty according to you? What is liberty according to you? What is equality according to you? అలా అడుగుతున్నారు అనమాట క్వశ్చన్స్. దే ఆర్ ఆస్కింగ్ క్వశ్చన్స్, సచ్ క్వశ్చన్స్. అలాంటి క్వశ్చన్స్ చెప్పేటప్పుడు మీకు ఆ లిబర్టీ అంటే ఏంటి, డిఫరెన్స్, వాట్ ఈస్ ద డిఫరెన్స్ బిట్వీన్ ఫ్రీడమ్ అండ్ లిబర్టీ, ఇట్లాంటివి తెలియాలి అంటే 11th క్లాస్ పొలిటికల్ థియరీ ఎన్సీఆర్టీ చదవండి. ఓకే. సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్లో పాలిటీలో ట్రెండ్ మారుతుంది. ఎందుకు ట్రెండ్ మారుతుందంటే స్టూడెంట్స్ ఏం చేస్తున్నారు, గ్రూప్ 2 లెవెల్లో స్టాక్ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్ చదివికి వెళ్తున్నారు. స్టాక్ టెక్స్ట్ బుక్ పాలిటీలో మీకు ఉన్నాయి, మీకు నాకు తెలుసు. అవి చదివి వెళ్తే అది పాత రోజుల క్వశ్చన్. నౌ ప్రెసెంట్ ట్రెండ్ ఇస్ క్వశ్చన్స్ were more about conceptual clarity rather than mugging up facts. So fact, if you get 10 questions in polity, 5 from factual and 5 from analytical part అయిపోతుంది అనమాట. సో యు ఆర్ ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్ టు స్టడీ మోర్ అబౌట్ దీస్ థింగ్స్. ఓకే. కొంచెం అలాంటి విషయాలు ఎక్కువ దృష్టి పెట్టండి. దానిలో పర్టికులర్గా 11th క్లాస్ ఎన్సీఆర్టీ పొలిటికల్ థియరీ ఒకసారి చదవండి. అండ్ కమింగ్ టు అగైన్, సో పాలిటీలో recent Supreme Court judgments. Last 2-3 years, important landmark Supreme Court judgments. You are expected to know the judgment, at least the core part of the judgment. So last 2-3 years nunchi Supreme Court in the judgments. And also the trending topic in polity, doctrines, DOCTRINES, doctrines of Indian Constitution. Doctrines of Indian Constitution. భారత రాజ్యాంగంలో ఉన్న సిద్ధాంతాలు, doctrine of rule of law, doctrine of due process of law, doctrine of eclipse, doctrine of severability, doctrine of waiver, doctrine of eclipse, doctrine of severability, doctrine of waiver. You are expected to study all these doctrines. There are around 10 to 15 doctrines in polity. రాజ్యాంగంలో సిద్ధాంతాలు ఉంటాయి. సో సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్లో అలాంటి సిద్ధాంతాలు కూడా అడగవచ్చు. In the same way, important constitutional amendments. For example, 99th constitutional amendment, NJAC, ఇలాంటివి కూడా అడగవచ్చు. They may ask you a match the following question with respect to important constitutional amendments. And also constitutional bodies and commissions. ముఖ్యంగా recent గా one body was created, BC Commission, National Commission for Backward Castes. So such type of questions also you may get in the exam. ఇలాంటి క్వశ్చన్స్ కూడా ఎగ్జామ్లో రావచ్చు. దాంతో పాటు లాస్ట్ 2 years ఇంపార్టెంట్ స్కీమ్స్ అండ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్, గవర్నమెంట్ ఏమేమి లాంచ్ చేసిందో ఆ 2 years ఇంపార్టెంట్ స్కీమ్స్ అండ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్. సో సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్ ఫిలిమ్స్ ఎగ్జామ్ ట్రెండ్ ఎలా చేంజ్ అవుతుందంటే, యు ఆర్ ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్ టు నో ద బేసిక్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎవ్రీ సబ్జెక్ట్ అండ్ యు ఆర్ ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్ టు అప్లై యువర్ బ్రెయిన్ ఆన్ బేసిక్స్ and integrate your study with static part and dynamic part. You are expected to integrate your study with static part of the syllabus and dynamic part of the syllabus. So I wish to tell you what is that integration all about. For example, take the subject of science and technology. Unless you know what is PSLV, what is GSLV, you cannot answer majority of the questions in space technology. So the difference between PSLV and GSLV might be static. It might be static. It will be told in basic your class. It will be told in our basic class, PSLV and GSLV. But now the NASA missions, ISRO missions, European Space Agency, NASA, ISRO, JAXA. So they're all important. They are all important, the recent missions, and also private sector in space. For example, SpaceX, Falcon 9 rockets. What all the recent updates with respect to space technology? One or two questions you can expect. Space technology. And apart from that, ISRO. ISRO means from last 2-3 years, there are plenty of achievements. From Gaganyaan, the Gaganyaan mission coming up, mission, Chandrayaan 2 failure, and is it successful mission or a failure mission? Even that, and where the failure lies, what is orbiter, what is lander, even that, and also NASA's moon missions, and also ASAT, anti-satellite mission Shakti. So all these things you are expected to study in detail. All the best textbook is ISRO website. 3 years back, there's a question on gravitational waves. The question Higgs boson. The question directly have come from NASA website anamata. NASA websites, ISRO websites, పూర్తిగా చూసుకోండి. చాలా important. Okay. And this year, I particularly ask you to focus on recent developments in information communication technology, particularly blockchain technology, 5G, difference between 4G and 5G, difference between 4G and 5G, virtual currencies. Virtual currency, China is launching its virtual currency. Recently, there's a news. It launched a pilot project also, virtual currency. 3D printing technology, the basics of it. Okay. 3D printing technology, also called as additive manufacturing. Do you know that? 3D printing is also called as additive manufacturing. So they may ask simple questions. And what is the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality? They'll give 4 statements. UPSC will say, in the below statements, which statement is wrong with respect to the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality? Virtual reality ki augmented reality ki basic difference enti? నేను చెప్పిన స్టేట్మెంట్ లేదు రాంగ్ అని అడుగుతారు యూపీఎస్సీలో. సో యూఆర్ ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్ బికాస్ 3-4 years బ్యాక్ దర్ ఇస్ అ గేమ్ పోకమాన్ గో అనే ఒక గేమ్ నచ్చింది బాగా. సో ఇట్ వాజ్ ఆగ్మెంటెడ్ రియాలిటీ, వర్చువల్ రియాలిటీ కంబైన్డ్ విత్ సమ్ ఎక్స్ట్రా ఫీచర్స్, ఆగ్మెంటెడ్ రియాలిటీ అనమాట. అండ్ వన్ మోర్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ థింగ్ ఇస్ సే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ డిఫెన్స్ టెక్నాలజీలో వాట్ ఆర్ ద అచీవ్మెంట్స్ ఆఫ్ డిఆర్డిఓ? ఇండియా ఇండిజినస్గా డిఫెన్స్లో ఏమేమి తయారు చేస్తుంది? ఓకే. Recently, yesterday, I have read in the news, Marich, anti-torpedo system. Marich, MAREECH. So simple words. Okay. Few years back, similar words have come. What is Tejas? What is Astra Darshini? ఇలాంటివన్నీ చిన్న పదాలు ఉంటాయి, మనం మర్చిపోతాం. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ Marich, MAREECH. It looks like a very small word, but it might be an exam word for you. It might be important for exam. Okay, so simple ga kinda A, it's a new missile. C, it's an anti-torpedo system. It's a new ship, new naval ship ila istadu anamata. So meer akkada exam chadavapothe exam lo raayaleru, or they may ask you in detail question about that. They may ask you indigenous ila detail ga adutaru, dani yokka capacity enti ani. You are expected to write your own notes on that. So prelims exam mundu rozaina notes raskuntu chadavandi. Even don't depend on some other material. ఆ మెటీరియల్ చూస్తూ రైట్ యువర్ ఓన్ నోట్స్, మీ నోట్స్ మీరు రాసుకోవాలి. అలానే యు ఆర్ సీన్ ద గ్రోయింగ్ టెన్షన్స్ బిట్వీన్ ఇండియా అండ్ చైనా, రైట్? సో డిఫెన్స్ టెక్నాలజీ విత్ రెస్పెక్ట్ టు దిస్ ఈస్ వెరీ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్ దిస్ ఇయర్. ఇండియా చైనా గొడవల్లో మన డిఫెన్స్ అంతా స్ట్రాంగ్గా ఉన్నాయి. ఎందుకంటే ఇన్ ద రీసెంట్ సిప్రీ రిపోర్ట్, యు నో వాట్ ఇస్ సిప్రీ రిపోర్ట్? స్టాక్హోమ్ ఇంటర్నేషనల్ పీస్ రీసెర్చ్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్, SIPRI, Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. The report, there is a detailed report about warheads, nuclear warheads about each country. Even that report might be famous, might be important for exam. And you all know we are in the midst of corona crisis. So I expect that they will change the question paper. As our exam postponed, don't think that the same old question paper they will give. There's every chance that they might, there's every chance, this is only my assumption, okay, there's every chance that they might prepare a new question paper. If at all they prepare a new question paper, more questions we can expect this year from biotechnology, like new vaccines, drugs, researchers, and different microorganisms, and what are the diseases which we get from different viruses and bacteria, and virus family, bacteria family, and mission Indradhanush, updated version of mission Indradhanush, and related organizations. Recently, many vaccine related and research related organizations are coming to news. For example, tell me, for example, ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research, ICMR. For example, CTRI, Clinical Trials Registry of India. Do you know there's an institute called CTRI, Clinical Trials Registry of India? We have a CTRI, Clinical Trials Registry of India. And we also have one more organization which is coming to news, Central Drug Standards Control Organization. Central Drug Standards Control Organization, CDSCO, is also coming to news. And during corona time, we have plasma therapy, convalescent plasma therapy. They may give a question on plasma therapy. They may give a question on convalescent plasma therapy. And 90 days, we have 90 days for prelims. For all of you, I wish to tell you 90 days are more than enough. They are more than enough to write a very good prelims, provided you know the weightage of the question paper. So what are the questions? What are the areas that are gaining more and more importance in the recent past? I can tell you safely, environment. Environment, if you put little effort, you'll get maximum marks. I'll tell you what to read in that. Second thing, economy. First is environment, ecology, biodiversity. First is environment, ecology, biodiversity. Second is economy. Third is polity. Fourth is science and technology. Fifth is history, art and culture. Sixth is IR groups. International relations are grooming up today. IR groups. For example, I expect a question might be from FATF, Financial Action Task Force. Why Financial Action Task Force? Always this year, for every 1 month, it is in news. మొత్తం 1 month లో ప్రతి 1 month ఒకసారి I'm getting news from FATF. I'm bored of speaking about FATF. తెలుసా మీకు? I'm bored అనమాట. అన్నిసార్లు చదివాను. FATF. So this is the most probable area. Even prelims or mains or interview. In the same way, recently India became observer in IOC, Indian Ocean Commission. You may get a question on who are the members in IOC, or how many observers are there in IOC, or what is the purpose of IOC. So these are the things. Recently, India have come out of RCEP, RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Even that is important. So such type of things we can expect. And coming to environment ecology. Environment ecology, you are expected to study basic books here. Basic terms of environment ecology. What is ecological niche? What is ecological pyramid? What is, for example, umbrella species? Foundation species, umbrella species, keystone species, the difference between all these things. See, I used to read by heart one document. It is in National Geographic. It is in the website of National Geographic. It contains 6 varieties anamata. It contains 6 varieties, that foundation species, umbrella species, keystone species, ila perlu untai. There will be 6 names and they'll exactly explain what is what. I expect this type of questions in environment. Apart from that, recently many species are coming up in news. Many species. 2 days, yesterday Arunachal Pradesh lo 2 new butterflies. 1 week back in Kerala, frogs. And day before yesterday in Sikkim, they have found new species. Nowadays, every day we are getting news. From last 1 year, what are the new species that were found? And also IUCN list. What are endangered species? What are vulnerable species which are in news? And for mains this year, the most probable question is man-animal conflict. For mains this year, the most probable question from environment, man-animal conflict. And you are expected to study IUCN Red List. You are expected to study the birds, animals, the flora and fauna. You are expected to study biodiversity, wetlands, and biosphere reserves in India. You are expected to study the river, national park, and other things. The data with respect to lions, tigers, with respect to elephants. Lions, tigers, elephants. And Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, WCCB, is regularly in news. WCCB, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, it is regularly in news. Even that you can read well. Some environmental institutions in India, international environmental NGOs. You are expected to study about international environmental NGOs and the functions of WCCB, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. Now tell me, I wish to ask one question. Is Wildlife Crime Control Bureau a statutory body or a non-statutory body? They'll give 4 statements. I told you read about Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. How to read about that? You should read whether the body is a statutory body. You should read when it was created. You should read where are its headquarters and where are its branches. You should read what is its mandate, what are its functions, what is its mandate, what are its functions. So this is how. నేను ఒక టాపిక్ చదవాలి అంటే అది మొత్తం ఆ టాపిక్ లో ఈ డీటెయిల్స్ చదవాలి. ఇలా క్వశ్చన్స్ అడుగుతారు. You are expected to study like that. Okay, and you are so daily allot 10 hours time, prioritize. Daily allot 10 hours time and prioritize. So environment, prioritize environment. Economy, you are getting, I'll tell you, last year 7 questions are only from banking. Out of 100 questions from single topic in economy, that is banking, you got 7 questions. Why 7 questions from banking? Because last year we have seen so much of banking reforms and crisis. So 7 questions you got in banking itself. So when you, if you are well versed with banking related topics, you can rock on matter. And coming to the weightage. So this year focus more on environment, more on S&T applied. S&T applied means last 2-3 years important topics. Geography, places in news, maps, places in news, maps, and polity, current affairs, and political theory questions. These are the areas which you need to do that, and you have enough time. I suggest you to go through fundamentals once again. NCERT smeda, you should have a clarity, conceptual clarity, fundamentals, and don't study static subject and dynamic subject separately. A 5 to 10 questions lo if you are very very lucky anni unte pass avutam. A 5 to 10 questions valla fail avutam kuda, ఒకసారి ఫెయిల్ అవుతాం కూడా అన్నమాట. ఓకే, ఈవెన్ దిస్. సో కమింగ్ టు మీకు ఇవి గుర్తుపెట్టుకొని జాగ్రత్త. లాస్ట్ 10 minutes అసలు రాని క్వశ్చన్స్కి ఆన్సర్ చేయడానికి ట్రై చేయకండి, అసలు రాని వాటికి. ఇఫ్ యూ డోంట్ ఎనీథింగ్, డోంట్ ట్రై టు ఆన్సర్. ఐ టోల్డ్ యూ అబౌట్ పాలిటీ, ఐ టోల్డ్ యూ అబౌట్ S&T ట్రెండింగ్ టాపిక్స్ ఎలా ఉంటాయని. సో లెట్స్ గో విత్ ఎకానమీ. సో if they change, if at all they change the question paper, what type of questions they may give this time in economy? ఎకానమీలో ఎలాంటి క్వశ్చన్స్ ఇవ్వచ్చు జస్ట్ ఒక ఐడియా చెప్తాను. ఇప్పుడు రీసెంట్గా there might be more reliance in our question paper about external sector, and also self-reliance because of COVID crisis, because of China, because of the various issues. Question paper and UPSC also might get attracted towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, particularly the follow-up of the government. Not only Atmanirbhar Bharat announcement, but also how government is bringing reforms. Budget ki enta ప్రాముఖ్యత ఉంది ఈ year. The reforms which the government brought forward this time in Atmanirbhar Bharat and aftermath of it are very very important. So year budget కంటే కూడా దీని మీద ఎక్కువ స్ట్రెస్ అయ్యే అవకాశం ఉందని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. లాస్ట్ 2 months నుంచి గవర్నమెంట్ బ్రాట్ సో మెనీ రిఫార్మ్స్ ఇన్ సో మెనీ సెక్టర్స్. దాని మీద రిలయన్స్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది ప్రిలిమ్స్ అండ్ మెయిన్స్ దిస్ ఇయర్. ఇఫ్ ఎట్ ఆల్ దే చేంజ్ ద క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్, ఎలా రిలయన్స్ ఉండొచ్చో చెప్తాను. ఐ ట్రై టు మేక్ యూ ఓరియంటేషన్ అనమాట. ఇది ఈ క్వశ్చన్ వస్తుందని కాదు, ఇట్స్ ఓరియంటేషన్. Say for example, in agriculture infrastructure fund around 1 lakh crores, agriculture infrastructure fund, dairy infrastructure development fund around 4,500 crores, check the data. Okay, agriculture infrastructure fund, dairy infrastructure fund, integrated bee management fund, herbal cultivation fund, ఔషధ మొక్కలు, ఔషధాలు, herbal cultivation fund, ఇవన్నీ. So these are all the things they brought in agriculture itself. I told you very few things. Even fisheries. Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, last year's scheme. Even that is important this year. And there is one more news that is coming up along with Atmanirbhar Bharat. India has bulging forex reserves. Mana forex reserves చాలా ఎక్కువ ఉన్నాయి. What constitutes forex reserves? What are the components in the forex reserves? And around today I have seen $507 billion of forex reserves. $507 billion. $507 billion of forex reserves. Even that is very, very important. And coming to Atmanirbhar Bharat again, manufacturing sector. This time in prelims or mains, from Andhra government to government of India, they are focusing more on MSME sector, micro, small, medium enterprises. So in that, government have changed the definition of MSME. And government also asked the banks liberalize the norms towards giving loans to MSMEs. More credit to MSMEs, even that is important. Even that is important. And also infrastructure sector this year, particularly coal sector. More FDIs, privatization to coal sector. And coming to India-China irritations, how it is going to impact Indian economy particularly. Recently, there is a report with respect to external trade. What are the 5 largest trading partners of India? US number 1, China number 2, UAE number 3, Saudi Arabia number 4, Hong Kong number 5. So China is our second largest trading partner, and India and China are now fighting. 2 days back, we have banned 59 Chinese apps, including TikTok. So this is the thing. And one most important thing, we always say India is a pharmaceutical giant, but the materials for pharmaceuticals, active pharmaceutical ingredients, API, we purchase from China. And also we always feel proud that we we export steel. In fact, we export only raw material of steel. We import steel, electronics, and various things from China. Steel we import from China, not only from China, Vietnam, South Korea, from many countries. Even this is a very important thing with China. Many experts are saying we cannot do our trade without China. Let's wait and see. And one more important issue, you might have an idea. India have trade surplus with America. India have trade surplus with America. So India sells more to America than purchases from America because of service sector. Whereas we have trade deficit with China. So with a country like America, we have trade surplus. Trump is crying for that. Trump is really, he was feeling bad about that. That is, India is purchasing less from America, but India is selling more to America. Though the surplus is very, very small, but we have trade surplus. Whereas with China, we have a huge $50 billion trade deficit with China. If you compare with America and China trade, India has trade deficit with huge, very big, very lump, $50 billion. That was a basic problem. So you all know that recently India came out from RCEP talks. Why? India has to face more and more trade deficit, not only with China. For example, Australia, New Zealand, dairy products, they may ask you, which are the following reasons why India have come out and withdrawn from RCEP talks? And yesterday, there was a news. There was a recent report from RBI. There's a report from RBI with respect to BOP, balance of payments. With respect to BOP, there was a report from RBI. All the time, even in my preparations, I used to read about CAD, current account deficit. We used to read about CAD, current account deficit. But for the first time after 12 years, RBI issued a report yesterday that India was surplus in current account. India has showing surplus in current account. It's not deficit, though it is very small, 0.6% of GDP, but it was immense for India. It was very, very important for India. First time we are into current account surplus. Even this is important. And apart from that, you might get, and why I told about this, you might get a question, what is BOP? What will be there in balance of payments? What are the components? What is the role of IMF in BOP, International Monetary Fund, in helping the BOP? And they may also ask questions like Chinese anti-dumping. What is anti-dumping duty? What is countervailing duty? Okay, what is the role of WTO in that? WTO almost have become dysfunctional. Why? Recently, WTO, there are no judges. There are no members in WTO for dispute settlement bodies and appellate bodies. Appellate bodies for WTO members appoint Jayatla America. America is trying to make WTO dysfunctional. What is the role of WTO in anti-dumping duties, trade wars? Ivanni kuda isari trending topics anamata. And banking reforms. This year you can see Punjab Maharashtra bank crisis. This year we have seen a major change. Housing banks earlier were under National Housing Bank anamata. NHB దగ్గర ఉండే మొత్తం housing banks అన్ని. Now directly RBI. They have come under the supervision of RBI housing banks. Alani 2 days back there's a news, 1 week back. Cooperative banks now have come under RBI. Cooperative banks kuda RBI దగ్గరకు వచ్చాయి. And you have seen the IL and FS crisis, infrastructure leasing and financial services crisis. So NBFCs, there is a chance of getting questions on NBFCs, banking sector reforms, and also that basic terminologies code. For example, in economy, macroeconomic indicators like CPI, WPI relating to inflation. Alane, GDP growth rates, GDP methodology, nominal GDP, real GDP, nominal GDP, real GDP. And from 2015 onwards, we are having GVA. GDP counting law, we follow GVA, gross value added methodology and matter. So many indicators. What is fiscal deficit? What is primary deficit? What is revenue deficit? All these things. Basic terminology, economy law, chala jagrataga నేర్చుకోవాలి. Basic terminology. What is fiscal deficit? What is primary deficit? What is revenue deficit? And you should also read about FRBM Act, and also public debt management. RBI released external debt, public debt. Recently, yesterday I remember. Yesterday RBI released data with respect to public debt, external debt. What is central government debt? Allow the external debt, allow the public debt, allow all these things were expected. And core sectors. How 8 core sectors are working. How they are improving. Due to Corona crisis, they were almost come down, and yesterday there was news that they're again gaining 8 core sectors. And how should we guess, and how can we guess the questions in economy? Kada, from last 2-3 years, whatever appears in the newspaper, the terms and the news, out of 10, if you get 10 questions, 8 from that. Last 2 సంవత్సరాల నుంచి న్యూస్ పేపర్లో వచ్చే టర్మ్స్ న్యూస్ చదివితే 10 క్వశ్చన్లు 8 ఆన్సర్ చేయొచ్చు ఎకానమీలో, సివిల్స్ ఎకానమీ. అందరూ అది అనుకోరు, బట్ దట్ ఇస్ ద ఫ్యాక్ట్ అబౌట్ ఎకానమీ. దట్స్ ద ఫ్యాక్ట్ అబౌట్ సివిల్స్ ఎకానమీ. గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి, లాస్ట్ 10 years. సో ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఆపరేషన్ ట్విస్ట్, it is in news last year. So there's every probability they might ask a complex question on operation twist. Alane FATF, I told you already. So these things are very important. This is about economy. Coming to history, see, static questions we can see, and there are something which we can guess. 100 years, 150 years, Second World War, how many years? First 75 years of celebrations. Okay, 100 years of Jallianwala Bagh, 100 years of non-cooperation movement. I'll just read out some of the important topics. Say for example, Rakhi Gari, Indus Valley Civilization part, Rakhi Gari. It was very important because there are some places which were discussed in the recent budget to develop archaeological sites, 5 archaeological sites. Rakhi Gari, Hastinapur, Shivsagar, Dolvira, Adichavallur. There are 5 historical sites, archaeological sites that they are developing in the recent budget. So it's very important. There are 5. What are the things? Rakhi Gari, Hastinapur, Shivsagar, Dolvira, Adichavallur, Adichavallur, Adichavallur in Tamil Nadu. So you may get good number of questions. Guru Nanak, 550th birth anniversary, government celebrated in a big way. Guru Nanak Jayanti. In the same way, festivals in news. See, one question you can expect from festivals. Ee samvatsaram news lo unna festivals, particularly tribal festivals, variety of festivals in India, festivals gurinchi adavachu. Alane Buddhism and Jainism, one question you can expect. Schools of Buddhism, veeti gurinchi. Schools of Buddhism. In the same way, 100 years of non-cooperation movement, 100 years of formation of AITUC, All India Trade Union Congress, 100 years of non-cooperation movement, 100 years of AITUC, All India Trade Union Congress. And regular questions in history will come from individual satyagrahas. 1940, Vinoba Bhave, 1940 individual satyagrahas. And see, First World War, Second World War, questions relating to that you can expect in history. And in the same way, with respect to current affairs, like NASA's Demoto mission, NASA's Artemis mission, ఇట్లాంటి క్వశ్చన్స్ కూడా కరెంట్ అఫైర్స్ రోజు న్యూస్లోనే వస్తుంటాయి. అండ్ read current affairs 1.5 years before the exam. Start reading, and you can stop reading for prelims 1 month before the exam. 40 days before the exam. 40 days before the exam, you can stop. For example, if you have October 4th, You can stop reading on September 1st. Ideal. And better to read because in mains they are very, very useful, if not in prelims. Well, next mains రాస్తే ఇంకా యూజ్ అవుతుంది అన్నమాట.
What are the things that help me in cracking the prelims? Like I have attempted in 18 and then in the last year 19. So both times I've cleared the prelims, and this is my first interview. I went to the first interview this time. So what worked for me, I will tell you. So before that, as I said, like I've started this preparation in 2018, and at that time also it was just like 2018 January I've started, and June I had prelims. So that was my first attempt, and then so based on that, what I understood is either you can read everything and be confident and then appear prelims, or you can identify some certain patterns, certain strategies, and certain shortcuts, and focus more on them and try to take a risk, and then you can attempt and still can clear. That was my experience from the first attempt. For the second attempt, however, I don't want to take that risk, so I focused more on basics again, strengthened my basics, and focused again on those patterns and those shortcuts. So today I'll try to explain those experiences first. And I've listened to ma'am's class, and ma'am has almost covered, touched every aspect. So instead of again going back to those subjects, what I'll do is I'll just share my experience only. Okay, strictly on experience basis. So first thing what I found is no one can complete the entire syllabus of UPSC prelims. That is first part. Even if you complete, you can't revise it at all, the entire complete syllabus. So that is why we need prioritization. So we need making certain priority. Only first we complete that order of priority, then we need to go to the other areas. So my first suggestion is don't note and study everything that appears, because that is the first mistake we do. Because whenever we see news or anything, what we tend to have a habit is this might be asked in prelims, this there might be a question on this, and then we start noting it down. So don't do that. That is the first experience. Second thing, we cannot read ideally all the current affairs, everything, and all the magazines, and don't rely on those magazines, because the moment you start the magazine, it will be of 60 pages booklet. For the first 2 pages you'll have interest, and after that you'll lose interest. You will not note down those events or remember those events. So that is why don't do that. And even if you do somehow hard way, because I know some of my friends have completed like 12 years, 12 months or 15 months magazines they have read. That too they have revised twice. And in 2019 paper when we sat, there was not even a single question that came from any of these booklets. So that is a kind of UPSC, changing the pattern. So that is why don't rely them also completely. And third thing, UPSC also tries to change the pattern. Okay, like for example, one for 18 and 17, it focused more on confusing the aspirants based on options. Like it gave the options very close. Sometimes even if you know the answer, you'll not be able to choose the option. But in 19, what it did, it completely changed the pattern by making the questions lengthy. So if you have to read a question, it will take 1 or 2 minutes to read the entire question itself. Instead of asking 1 or 2 sentence questions, it started asking 4 sentence questions. So because of that, many people, like they had made some strategies and went to exam, and somehow they were unable to implement it. Like what is the strategy, I'll explain you, and many toppers also will tell this. Like you can go for first reading, you identify easy questions, mark them, go for second reading, mark moderate questions, and then go for third reading and do all the hard questions. But actually what happened in UPSC is no one was able to attempt more than 95 questions, even in the first reading also. Because for reading the question, understanding it, and then choosing the option itself was taking more than 1 minute. So until unless if you don't do that less than that, you'll not be able to solve those 100 questions. So that is the problem. So that is why you should be ready to expect the surprises. So that is the third or fourth experience. And another thing is you should have some presence of mind and calmness in the exam. This is very important, because there will be surprise questions. Like in 19 paper, I found one question, that is straight away they asked article 142 deals with. Okay, and I was completely blank. Even if I remember also, I was confused between 141, 142, and 143. So you, at that time, you shouldn't scare. You shouldn't get scared by seeing the question. Instead, see the options. Because when UPSC gives such tricky questions, what it does is it will give the hint in the options. In the options, what it given is first option dealt with emergency powers. So if you know that emergency power, that will be somewhere after 360, right? Article 356, 360, these deals with emergency. Second option was something related to state assemblies. So that is the article that is somewhere in 70 to 100. And third thing is Supreme Court jurisdiction. So that is the third option. So now you can see 140 somewhere related to Supreme Court. At least that information I know. So if you know that kind of information, because the options are very different, so that is why you will be able to mark the option C as the right answer for Article 142, even if you don't know exactly what Article 142 stands for. So what I'm saying is, by just seeing Article 142, you shouldn't skip the question or kind of get frightened. Instead, you should also see the options once again, and then you can decide. Because sometimes question might be trap or question might be tricky, but the options will give you the clarity. So try to completely read the question, only then come to a conclusion whether to attempt or not. And next thing, usually what happens is pattern of UPSC will be something like 20 marks, 20 questions will be very easy. Like if you have read the newspaper, you are just following or you have just basic knowledge, you'll be able to attempt. You don't even need to revise or do nothing. Even if you attend classes also, you'll be able to attend 20 easy questions. Then there will be 40 moderate questions. Okay, these 40 questions are completely pattern based. That means these are not surprise questions. If you have strong base in basics like NCRTs, if you have covered, you have regularly followed newspaper, these moderate questions can be covered. So now 60 questions are covered. Next 20 will be based on your analytical skills. That means you will not know the answer there and then. You know only logic. You have to apply them and then solve, eliminate the question, eliminate the options, or somehow you have to get the option by doing certain thinking on the go at that exam center itself. These are 20 questions, and there will be final 20 questions. Those 20 questions UPSC will give only to scare people. Like these questions will not be able to attempted by anyone. I mean, like even if you cover entire syllabus, you'll not be able to cover those 20 questions. So that will be that much practically difficult. So what should be our aim is, we should first secure our 60 questions. That is 20 easy questions and 40 moderate. So once these 60 questions are secured, now imagine 60. 60 means 60 into 2, 120 marks. And out of 60, we'll be pretty sure that like will not be 100% accurate, right? So remove some marks for negative. So even if you remove 20-25 marks from that, you will get at least in the border range of 95. So 95 is your mark range. Now the cutoff will be somewhere around 105 to 110. So the next 10 marks will be your game changer. So the 40 questions I said, right, analytical, where you have to apply your brain and deduct the answers there and then, those 40 questions out of 40, if you are able to make sure 20 are correct, you will be above the cutoff. But at the same time, you should not take the risk of attempting the last 20 questions that are very difficult. By seeing the question itself, you will know that it is not only me, but anyone cannot attempt these questions. So those kind of questions, you should not try to attempt them. So this is something you have to know, like what is the pattern. Sometimes there will be a change, like there will be 30 easy questions, 30 moderate questions, or 10 only easy questions, 50 moderate questions. So based on this, based on your understanding there and then, you have to decide how many questions you have to attempt. So this is another important experience I've understood. Next thing, focusing. Usually what the mistake prelims aspirants do is, either will focus more on our static part or on current affairs, but will not focus on our previous year questions. And previous year questions and the patterns, deducting the patterns is the most important part in exam. See, now you have exactly October 4th exam. That means 90 days. So in 90 days, you have to focus only on certain priority areas. If you try to now read all the NCRTs and then standard books and then read all the 12 months magazines, you'll never get enough time to complete them. Or even you'll not get enough questions to clear the prelims. So instead, you should focus on those patterns. That is why I'm saying don't focus excessively on revision of NCRTs itself or revision of current affairs magazines itself. This is something that can help you only to a certain minimum level. So that is that. And next thing, analysis and interlinking of questions is very, very, very important. So I will give an example here. Like for example, what happened is basically till 2018 previous year paper, usually they will ask a question on rivers. Okay. Before 19 they used to ask like what are the tributaries, like what is the left bank tributary of Mahanadi river, what is the right bank tributary of Mahanadi river and all. And in 19 how they came up, instead of asking these tributaries, because UPSC also knows if they give two questions in successive years in this form, like what are the tributaries or what are the states through which the river flows, every aspirant will try to know all the rivers in this format only. Okay, so that is why 19, what is the question? They've asked what are the temples that are there on the banks of Kaveri river. And why this Kaveri river came as a question? Because there was a water dispute on Kaveri River between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka at that time. And this was completely news. So everyone was focusing either on that debate or on river sharing, but no one or on tributaries. This is the extent through to which all the magazines or all the aspirants were focusing. But what UPSC asked is instead it linked that river with culture, with art and culture or history, and then asked those temples. Like there were certain bank temples on Kaveri river because Kaveri is historically famous for certain Tamil Dravidian temples, and it asked in that pairing. So that is why I'm saying interlinking is very important. Some, like some people or some experts say these are polity, these are geography, these are economic questions, but usually in UPSC what happens is UPSC doesn't divide them in that logical way. There will be polity questions in environment also. Like you might be surprised to know how polity question can be asked in environment. I'll give you one example. Like in environment this year, out of like 10 questions, 70% of questions are on governance aspect. That means like what is extended producer responsibility, what are solid waste management rules, what are the bodies. So in environment they are asking governance related questions. So this is how you have to interlink. So when you study rivers in geography, you shouldn't see river as only geographical concept. You have to see in a map where it is flowing, which temples are there, what is the historical aspect of. You have to bring history also for geography. Like if there is Kaveri river, then what is the historical aspect of Kaveri river, why it is called, if there is any another name, like for example, for Godavari I think there is a name called Southern Ganga. So this is kind of names, everything you have to know. So in this way if you interlink, you will be able to even outsmart the UPSC. So that is a main another experience that I found. And next thing, cost benefit analysis, very important. Like at this time in this 90 days, you can't focus attention of same attention on each and every subject, because there are certain subjects and certain areas where you will get more marks and you have to focus more on them. For example, when I attempted in 18 and 19, this is my personal suggestion, I mean personal strategy, and this is personal thing. I don't advise anyone to imitate this, only try to learn, because I don't want you to skip anything. See, for 18 and 19 prelims I have skipped completely art and culture. Okay, but I don't advise you to do that, because art and culture I found somehow, even if you invest so much of time, like even if you invest 1 month time, all the maximum benefit I was able to see is like 4 or 5 marks. So instead I want to focus that same 1 month in another subjects where I can score more. So I've left an art and culture, because in art and culture, if you keep on reading Nitin Singhania, the questions are actually coming on festivals, or the questions are completely on current affairs or on tribes which are not covered in Nitin Singhania. So what my intention is, don't try to focus on areas where they will give less output. Instead strategize. For example, environment is there. Environment is very good fetching area. In environment also, don't try to take up a book like this Shankaran IAS book of environment and now start reading everything from basics, like what is nitrogen cycle, what is carbon cycle and all, because no one will ask these questions. The questions are more on latest trends. So try to see previous year questions, identify those trends. For example, in environment, recently in India there was CMS convention that was held. That is Convention on Migratory Species. In that, Ahmedabad declaration was made. So try to know what is that, why CMS is there. And similarly, in the news, it is about UNFCCC and its 1.5-degree report. So now try to know about that report and go into that area. So instead of trying to know the basics, see in the last 3 years how it is going. Because now in environment, they're not focusing on the concept base, like what is CO2 or what are the global warming gases, or they're not asking how carbon cycle works, which bacteria fixes nitrogen. These are the kind of questions that used to come earlier. Now the trend was switched to applied part. That means how will you apply your theory or concepts to the modern technologies. For example, now for climate change, to address climate change, there are certain latest technologies that are coming, like carbon sequestration technologies, like they are calling some geoengineering technologies. What they will do is, like they will create artificial clouds so that global warming effect will be less. So there are certain terms. Try to know this. Try to know more about this. So where it is a source? How will you know? Go to those international websites. For example, UNEP is there. United Nations Environment Program is there. Go to their website. Try to see what is that, what is the history of that organization, what are the conventions around that organization, what are the projects it is doing. Everything is there in that website itself. So just try to, even if you visit one international organization per day, you'll be able to complete everything in the less than 90 days. So try to do this. Second thing, so this is how priority needs to be done. That is, what is your strength area? Second thing, where are the areas where you can get maximum output from less effort? For example, as I said, geography is one area where you can put less effort and gain maximum marks. Economy, as ma'am said, it is very less. If you just focus on current affairs and try to link the concepts, you'll be able to answer. For example, in economy, right now there is a discussion of how to revive the Indian economy under COVID crisis. In that concept, what are they talking? Either to give direct money from RBI, that is helicopter money. So what is helicopter money? Now if helicopter money is being an option that is explored by government, what is the negative impact? The negative impact is on inflation. So UPSC will not ask either helicopter money or inflation. It will take this logical connection and it will ask, like as an option, which of the following statements are correct? First thing, if helicopter money is used as an option, it will lead to decrease in inflation. This is the first statement. Second thing, if fiscal deficit is breached, then the rupee value will be depreciated. This is second option. So third option, if external borrowings are made, it will have long term effect on economic growth. This is the third option. D, none of the above are correct. So in this way, it will link the concepts and then we'll try to see whether you are able to apply the concepts that are you seeing in the newspaper. Because you should know what is fiscal deficit, how it is affecting the inflation or rupee depreciation. If it is affecting, whether breach will increase the rupee value or decrease the rupee value. Only when you are crystal clear about that, then you will be able to answer it. So economy is very easy in this aspect. If you are following newspaper every day and trying to know the basic concepts, then it will be easy. So this is something about priority, and then in that priority also focusing on latest trends. So if in this course, like what we'll do is we will identify those patterns, like what are those patterns where we have to focus more. So that is other thing. And finally, uh, after the exam, like you will be surprised to know that you will be able to do at least 10 silly mistakes, like irrespective of how much times you have revised. Like every one of my friends, we came to know after the exam that we did some silly mistakes unknowingly, which actually were very known to us and easy. So how do we commit these silly mistakes? Why do we commit them? We commit them because we'll be in a hurry in exam and there will be too much stress. Okay, so what happens is basically, for example, your set is A, and in set A first all the questions are history, based on history, and you are not very sure about the history, or you don't like history much, or there are very difficult history questions. If you see first 10 questions and you are unable to answer, your almost half of the confidence will be gone. Even if there are easy questions after that, you'll not be able to focus your mind. So that is an experience which leads to these silly mistakes. So that is one thing. Second thing, in the question what they will do is, which of the following statements are not correct or incorrect? Can you see the slight difference between incorrect and correct? So in is the only difference, but you will not be able to see until unless you check your key. So that is why you have to focus on the question very keenly, and you have to read it twice. One mistake I precisely remember, I'll explain you. I made it like, there was a question about MSP, and they said the MSP will be suggested by following organization. Okay, suggested. Here the keyword is suggested. It is not saying approved, because if it is approved, it will be finance ministry. But if it is suggested, then there is an another organization called NCAP, something they suggest, agriculture produce committee, prices committee is there. They will suggest. So they will give both of them in the options to confuse you. And what I went is, I went with finance ministry, but actually the answer is that organization, that NCAP or something, which suggests. Because I didn't focus on suggest and I went into options, I made that silly mistake. So this is the kind of thing you have to focus. So you have to crystal clear on the question part. You have to read twice before answering them. And second thing, this kind of doing silly mistakes, you will address it only by practicing again and again. So these are the experiences that I learned by, two exams. So that is why I don't want you to make these uh, problems again. Okay, and now what are the strategies that help me, that I will discuss. Okay, so I'll just want to share a screen if possible. Okay, now I don't think there will be. So next time if we meet, I'll share and show you. What I used to do is, for example, there is a monsoon concept. Okay, so usually what I do is, I'll go to this website. We have meteorological department, right? Indian meteorological department. If you go to that website, okay, I guess screen sharing is being given, so I'll very quickly show you that. For example, recently there was a famous cyclone in Odisha. You all know, right? That Odisha and West Bengal cyclone. So we all discussed about that, and Nisarga is another cyclone. Amphan is that cyclone. We read so much information about the current event itself, but will not see what are the basic concepts behind the cyclone. So where to get that information? If you go to IMD website and go to facts, that is frequently asked questions, there is so much important critical data that is there. If you read them and if you note important points, you can directly get questions from them. For example, I'll just show you some of them. See here, what is tropical cyclone? Here it is an authority based document, like they are the final authority. So here if they give some conditions, then these will be the direct options in the questions of UPSC. Like what is a tropical cyclone? They can take up 5 to 6 HPA, or they can take up 300 to 5 kilometers a day as a condition. And these conditions they will give 1 to 3, and they will ask you when a cyclone can be declared. So this is how you can get that information by reading this. Now, why do tropical cyclone winds rotate counterclockwise in northern hemisphere? So now we all know this. Why? What happens? This fact we know that tropical cyclones rotate counterclockwise in northern hemisphere and clockwise in southern hemisphere. But how and what is the reason? You can see here. And similarly, everything. What is the maximum sustained wind mean? And then what is the ranges where a cyclone will be declared. For example, first a cyclone and then super cyclone, or there are different kinds, right? These are things. See, low pressure area, depression, deep depression, cyclonic storm, then severe cyclonic storm, very severe cyclonic storm. So these are the ranges. So if you see this fact document entirely, it will maximum take 20 to 25 minutes for reading this entire document. But most of the questions that are related, like 360-degree view of the cyclones, will be completed. So this is how you can do your preparation with respect to the these thing. Similarly, I have another document. These are some of the documents I used to see. See, for example, this is about monsoon. You will cover most of the information about monsoon from the static part itself, but we'll never know what are the dynamic questions, what are the concepts. These concepts are very important from the prelims point of view. So this also you can get it from IMD website. So this is about that frequently asked questions on monsoon, like everything. What is difference between El Nino? What is the effect of Indian Ocean dipole on monsoon? How El Nino and Indian Ocean dipole are related with respect to monsoon? All these aspects you can get it from there. So that is about like one of the method that I used to do. That is one strategy. Second thing, visiting PIB also helped me. Like, why PIB? Because if you visit PIB frequently, instead of spending so much amount, if you know where to read, you can directly attempt the questions, because some options are verbatim lifted from the PIB. So that is why PIB is very important. Third thing, ministry websites are very, very, very important, and many of us neglect those ministry websites. Okay, so for that you have to, for example, you don't need to read or go to all the ministry websites, but there are certain ministry websites that are important. For example, Niti Aayog is there. You have to go visit that website. You have to see annual document, annual report, what are the projects they are doing, because Niti Aayog nowadays is releasing many reports to develop this competition between the states. For example, water report, there is an education related report, health index report. So just try to see, browse what are the parameters on which Niti Aayog is giving. Similarly, if you go to Ministry of Agriculture website, you will know different irrigation schemes, different areas where the agriculture programs or government launch programs are working, and World Bank where it is helping. So this way you will get 360-degree view, and everything is there under the category of agriculture, and it will be very interactive also to learn from the website instead of reading it in a static book. So try to do this visiting the ministry websites. And next thing, what other thing that helped me is curiosity. So curiosity is very important aspect, because we all say what is the important thing for prelims is hard work, patience, revision and all, but in my view curiosity is the most important aspect. If your curiosity is gone, you'll not be able to sit for 6 to 7 hours and read. So how to generate this curiosity? So instead of reading from materials where it is boring, try to read it from different sources. For example, you are unable to understand El Nino concept by reading, try to see the videos, try to see somewhere an explanation, videographic explanation how El Nino is working. And if suppose you are reading on conventions, go to those convention websites, they will give you graphical way, they will put some pictures and they'll show you, so that way it will be interesting. So this way you have to generate your curiosity, so that you will be able to read for 6 to 7 hours. So that is very important for prelims. So here if you see, there are certain patterns. Like for current affairs, I said like no questions are there on schemes. Like last time what I observed in 2019 is many of our friends have studied hundreds of schemes, and there were no direct questions on schemes. And there were satellite launches that we have studied, there are no questions at satellites. And there were no big 100-year questions, because these are the normal patterns. And there was no use of reading any magazine. So these were the surprises that we got from 2019 and 18. So instead, what are the patterns, like how UPSC is doing? That is, if you see, the current affairs is important, but they'll not ask directly on current affairs. Instead, they will interlink it to the another concept, and they'll ask that concept based on inspiration. So here, inspiration of current affairs is important. For example, last year in 2018, AIB was in news because AIB India is the largest beneficiary. So because of that, it was in a constant news, and it was funding many projects in India. But the question on AIB was not on AIB current affairs. Instead, they asked on AIB structure, like what is the funding ratio, what is the voting share of India, where AIB is headquartered. So you have to know this part instead of reading the current affair. Similarly, there was important city gas network or national level gas based grid was being envisioned at that time, and that was in the news. And the UPSC didn't ask at all on gas grid or gas grid related scheme. Instead, they asked on petroleum and natural gas regulatory body. So they asked a static question. So now you may say PNGRB forms under or falls under static part of polity, but it is actually inspired from city gas network. So this is the way they are interlinked. Similarly, there are certain trap questions. I have also fall for this trap. So this was a question in 2019. Like there was an important scheme called maternity benefit scheme. Okay, in 2019 it came, and everyone know, like they have by hearted what are the provisions of this scheme. Like there were certain weeks of pregnancy leave that will be compulsorily given to pregnant women or lactating women and all, and this is a much of amount that should be given and all. Okay, but what UPSC did is UPSC converted that weeks into days. Okay, and UPSC has placed a condition of lactating women. So what we do is we buy hard but don't focus on these minute details. So because of that, I was thinking of an option where weeks will be present. Instead, as days was there, I thought it was a wrong option, and I fell into the trap, and I lost that question. Like 2 marks I lost there. So this is the kind of things where you have to identify, like these traps you have to identify. So this also will discuss how to identify these traps and how to get off these traps, because while you're reading itself, if you already know that this is the event that happened in UPSC before, you will try to see the provisions in different format, like you will see in weeks, you will see in quarterly basis, you will see in days, so that when you're attempting an UPSC, it will be easy for you. Similarly, ease of doing business was in news, and every magazine covered ease of doing business because we have improved vastly. But in 2019, they focused on inner details. Like they didn't focus what is the rank or which organization gives ease of doing business. That was till 2018. Till 2018, UPSC focus was on which organization gives these reports. In 2019, they asked in which parameters India has improved. So that means you also need to know the inner details. So next time for 2020, you should not only see the organizations which release the reports, but you also have to see the parameters. Which parameters? And now, just as I said, that doesn't mean you have to read all the reports that are coming out. Instead, you have to prioritize the reports where India has done very good or worst, because those are the important reports. So if you note down them and try to do a inner detail view of it, that will be more than enough. So that will be like 10 reports. So if you focus on 10 reports instead of 100 reports, you will definitely get a question. So this is a kind of priority I'm saying. So this is about those current affairs related questions, and these are some of the important topics which I think are important for this year. Like for example, if one nation one card is there, it is in current news and everyone is covering, but UPSC will not ask on that one nation one card. Instead, it will focus on National Food Security Act that was passed in way back in 2013, I believe. It will ask what is the government aspect of state and center with respect to national food security, like what is the responsibility of center, what is the responsibility of state. Or they might go, combining national common mobility card, like they'll ask what is the difference between one nation one card and national mobility card, what is the difference between these two schemes. So these kind of questions will be there. For example, India China is there, then they might ask arrange the following in north to south or east to west in the form of disputes, like the Spang Galvan Valley, Hot Springs, Pangong. So everything they'll give, and they'll ask you to mark it from north to south or from east to west. So this is the kind of precise information you should know. And now, because South China Sea and entire area around China is very critical, you need to know all the straits there. Like where is Taiwan Strait? Where is East China Sea? Where is South China Sea? Where is Philippines Sea? Where is Celebes Sea? Where is Andaman Sea? And you have to also know from east to west it goes, or west to east, or from north to south, because UPSC might ask anyway. So this is a 360-degree view in which you have to see. And now if suppose Kalapani dispute is there, they'll not ask on Kalapani. Instead, they will go to Nepal India Friendship Treaty and they'll ask on provisions of Nepal India Friendship Treaty. What are the important provisions? Like, can Indian go and work in Nepal or not? Can Indian purchase property in Nepal or not? These are the kind of questions. Okay. So like similarly, as I said, like in 2019 there was a question on Article 142. Article 142 is about Parliament encroaching into Supreme Court's power or Supreme Court jurisdiction. Now, if you see in September or October when this CAA was going on, Kerala and Chhattisgarh went to Supreme Court against center on CAA based on one article called Article 131. So Article 131 frequently came in news. So this time there might be a question on directly on Article 131. Like what is Article 131 refers to? This refers to original jurisdiction of SC. That means when there is a dispute between center and state, or between the states, or between two states and center, they can go directly to Supreme Court. So this is Article 131. So they might ask on this, or they might ask on other jurisdictions, like what is advisory jurisdiction, what is appellate jurisdiction, what is difference between appellate and original. So this is a kind of structure in which you have to prepare for prelims, especially for the next 90 days. So these 90 days are very crucial. So now instead of going and revising all the, like for example in geography, what we do is we focus on class 11th and 12th NCRTs. We keep on reading them, like all the what are landforms, what are the different latitudes, longitudes, all this. But if you see geography from the last 5 years, the pattern is completely different. So at least now what I'm saying is not to read those NCRTs. Read them, but try to focus in these 90 days the latest patterns. Because in 100 questions, 60% of the questions you can get it from the patterns. If you are able to solve the 60%, you are above the 100 mark. Rest 20 questions, you can put some analytical ability and can easily cross 100 plus.